Set the trumpet to your mouth. He shall come like an eagle against the house of Yahweh, because they have transgressed my covenant and rebelled against my law. He, as in the enemy, and as many nations in the past, like for instance Rome, the Nazis in Germany, the Amalekites, which are the main enemy of Israel, which came from Esau, Israel's brother. All these used the eagle as their symbol. Even the tribe of Israel, Dan, is connected with the eagle, and is also connected with negative things. Reason why is not found amongst the chosen tribes of Revelation 7. So here we see that it starts saying, "Set the trumpet to your mouth," like in the book of Revelation, we see the 7 trumpets that will sound in the last week of Daniel. It says in Hebrew shofar. So let me see what else. As I have explained also, and as Paul said it, Yahweh would manifest during the harvest again as the great malach with the great trumpet, or the great shofar. So now that Hoshea, representing the second coming of salvation, meaning of Hosea, yet Hoshea being the prophet, who therefore represents the prophet like Moshe promised to him in Deuteronomy 18. So in this chapter we see that Yahweh tells the prophet to put the shofar to his mouth, so that he can let everybody know what is about to happen. Just like the malach of the last trumpet would be Michael, who is the one who gathers the chosen few. So after that it says, "Set the trumpet to your mouth. He shall come like an eagle against the house of Yahweh." So the eagle is an animal used by nations that have come against Israel many times. And also the eagle is an impure animal, and it represents those who steal, or those who take from others, those who take from those who work, pretty much. And therefore thieves and many other things. And what I mean pretty much is that there are many thieves who are in high positions, and those are the main ones to which it is referring. So therefore also the main empire which takes advantage of the people, like an eagle takes advantage by their sight being on top, and just goes down and takes whatever they want. Plus in the book of Revelation, and in Matthew, for instance, in Luke 17, Matthew 24, and Mark 13, we see that when the harvest happens, the chosen few must run to the mountains, as Yahushua said it, and then there will be 2 in one house. One will be taken and one will be left. Christians take that verse to say that that is the rapture, yet they don't take into account the first person who actually ran away and who actually listened to the words of Yahushua. So that is why the disciples then ask Yahushua Mashiach, who or what happens to those who are taken away? And Yahushua says that wherever you see the vultures, some translations write the eagles, as in about to eat their flesh, there you will see their corpse or their dead bodies, as it is written in Matthew, I repeat, and Luke 17, but in Matthew is where they add the word dead to bodies, even though when you see the concordance, the word that should be there is corpse or dead body, but they just write body and they write eagles instead of vultures. So they make a whole doctrine regarding that, and they claim that that is the rapture. But the point is that since the eagle and the vulture are family, then in the concordance we find those two animals for the same word. So that is also connected with this verse when the enemy will feed off the people. So he shall come like an eagle against the house of Yahweh, because they have transgressed my covenant and rebelled against my law. So since the people transgress the law, then Yahweh allows the enemy to attack them. The enemy wouldn't be able to do anything to us. Satan, or whoever the enemy may be, wouldn't be able to do anything to us ever if we fulfill the law according to the will of the Father, not according to the letter or yeah, we know you, Israel. So it says, to me they will cry, my mighty one, we know you, Israel. So this is key, because as we know, many people claim to believe in the Almighty, and this is very similar to what Yahushua said regarding the parable of the 10 virgins, or those who will come to him and say, but we cast demons in your name, we heal the sick in your name, we did this and that in your name. Yet Yahushua will turn to them and say, go away, for I do not know you, evildoers. So part of the interpretation of all of that is the fact that people claim to believe in him, but they don't actually seek his presence, so they don't come to know him, so they don't know that they actually are praying and worshiping and following a different entity, a different spirit, the spirit of error, which leads them to a false Messiah, a different way. So that's why there will come a point when they will be amazed and confused, and they will say, we know you, what is happening, we know you. Yet through their actions, through their words, it is clear that they didn't. When they rejected, for instance, in this case, which we're talking about the end times, when they rejected 2 witnesses. So this next verse actually confirms that which I was saying, that it has to do with the fact that they rejected 2 witnesses. So it says, Israel will cry to me, my mighty one, we know you. Israel has rejected the good. The enemy will pursue him. As I was saying, if we were to do what is good in the eyes of Yahweh, then the enemy wouldn't be able to pursue us. But since Israel rejects the good, then the enemy is able to hurt the people. But not only that, as I was saying, this represents the fact that they reject the second coming. Yahushua, when he came as the tree of life. He came to give us life eternal through our faith in him, as eating of the fruit, since he was hanged from a tree, or a cross made of wood from a tree. So the last is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in the sense that he fell in sin because he is son of men, and as it is prophesied in the parable of the prodigal son and many other parts of scriptures, the one who would come from the tribe of Joseph, unlike Yahushua HaMashiach, who would come from the tribe of Yehudah or Judah. So the last that comes from Joseph would come as the prodigal son, the son of men, from a regular couple. So unlike Yahushua, who came from a virgin. So that's why it says here they rejected the Tov. They have rejected what is good. And as I was saying, the last comes as the tree of good. But since he was like the prodigal son, he knew what he was to do wrong. And he chooses to do good and follow Yahweh. So Yahweh reveals to him what is good, and therefore he reveals it to the world. Yet the world rejects him and chooses instead evil. So the last comes to show what is the true goodness of Yahweh, or who is Yahweh, who is good. As Yahushua said, when they call him good, he said, "Why do you call me good? There is only one who is in the heavens." So he himself said not to be this one, Tov, because Yahushua, I repeat, is the tree of life. The last comes as the tree of knowledge of Yahweh, through Yahushua the way, who gives wisdom. The last gives understanding. So here we see that they will reject, Israel will reject, and meaning the many of the world who claim to believe, but most will reject the two witnesses, one of which comes as the tree of knowledge of good, which in Hebrew is Tov. And right here it says they have rejected Tov, the good one, or that which is good. So their enemy will pursue them. Interestingly enough, also when it says rejected, the verb in Hebrew says zanach. Yet if we take away the first letter zain, we have Noach, which is the name of the one who built the ark, and to whom Yahushua referred when he said the coming of the Son of Man would be like the days of Noah. So it mentions the Tov, and the name Noah is hidden in there. And once they reject the last, they kill who comes as what is Tov, is when the enemy, Satan, as the false Messiah, will appear on earth and deceive and then pursue the many and kill them. Obviously, those who reject him, who reject the mark of the beast. So, verse 4. They set up kings, but not by me. This is important because to some people this is a contradiction to what Romans or other verses in Scripture say regarding how Yahweh is the one who places kings and takes them away. That verse and others like it speak about how everything happens according to his will. Yet here it says they set up kings but not by me. The point here is that they reject Yahweh, so they choose their own leaders, and Yahweh allows them to put evil leaders on top of them because they rejected him and didn't follow the law. So since they broke the covenant and the enemy can pursue them, then the enemy can fool them through politics and become their leader. So Yahweh allows it, is the one who at the end allows the enemy to be leader of the people, but it's the people who chose it. Because the will of Yahweh, the perfect will of Yahweh, would have been for him to rule over them. But since they rejected him, then the permissible will, through the free will of the people, through their sin, is for them to be ruled by the enemy. And when they are ruled by the enemy, then they realize their error and they tend to purify their deeds, or at least they should, so that Yahweh may release them from the yoke of the enemy. So they set up kings, but not by me. They made princes, but I did not acknowledge them. So to Yahweh, they were not real princes, but they gave them those titles. From their silver and gold, they made idols for themselves. This is a clear example of the previous part of the verse. For just like they put their own leaders instead of those chosen by Yahweh, because people don't want to hear the truth, they want to hear lies, so that's why they chose politicians. The same way they don't want to choose Yahweh, so they made for themselves idols. So just like they rejected Moshe, they rejected Mashiach, they would reject the two witnesses. They would reject the two witnesses, just like they reject him. So they set up kings, but not by me. They made princes, but I did not acknowledge them. From their silver and gold, they made idols for themselves, that they might be cut off. Obviously, they don't do that. They don't make the idols in order to be killed, but they, without knowing it, are doing it to be punished. So Yahweh is just being clear about what he says, but obviously people are blinded, just like the idols, who have eyes and cannot see, and ears but cannot hear. So they're not able to understand what they are doing, so they make idols, not understanding that those idols will become their trap, for they are believing in lies. They made idols for themselves, that they might be cut off. Your calf is rejected, O Shomron, or Samaria. Your calf is rejected, meaning their idol. They began to worship an idol in the shape of a calf, just like the golden calf when Israel came out of Egypt, which represents Baal, who is worshipped nowadays with the title or name Lord. Actually, Baal in English is Lord. So that's why we don't use Lord to refer to the Most High. For the people thinking they were worshiping the Most High, thinking they were worshiping the Elohim of the scriptures, they were actually worshiping a calf, Baal. Here's a comment. Has rejected you, begin to diminish. Verse 5. It would be as saying, he has rejected your calf, your ox. Shamrum. So Yahweh has rejected your calf, which is interesting also the way it's being said, because as we know, the second coming, he comes from the tribe of Yosef, and Yosef, because of Ephraim and Menashe as two horns, is represented by a calf in Deuteronomy, same book in which Yahweh promised the prophet like Moshe to come from Yosef, from Ephraim, like an ox who would die in Yom Kippur when an ox was sacrificed. So it's as if Yahweh was saying, your calf, that of the many, represented by Shomron, who claim to guard the Torah, yet they don't do so because they don't understand it, either follow it by the law or commandments of men, or claim that Yahushua abolished it. So Yahweh is saying, your doctrine, your teaching, what you were eating, what you were worshiping, I rejected it. Because, as I have said, the last comes as an ox to die in Yom Kippur, and one of the reasons why he's all that way is because he comes to pay, in a way, die for the sin of the apostasy, which is that the church has worshipped the calf, the ox. So an ox has to die to rectify that sin. So your calf is rejected, O Shomron. My anger is aroused against them, against those who claim to follow Yahweh, yet they follow the golden calf. They follow idols, the false doctrine. My anger is aroused against them. How long until they attain to innocence? Which the only way will be through being born again. to attain innocence through Yahushua. And when it comes to the many, who are represented by Shomrom in this case, they would be attaining innocence once they are resurrected. Verse 6, for from Israel is even this, a workman made it, and it is not Elohim. It is an idol. So for from Israel is even this, a workman made it, and it is not Elohim. But the calf of Shomron shall be broken to pieces. So even though they worship it as a mighty one, Yahweh will make sure that they see how it will be broken, and not only the idols, but the fallen angels who claim to be Elohim. They sow the wind and reap the whirlwind. So they sow a spirit, but since it is a wrong spirit, the spirit of error, then it becomes for them a natural disaster, a whirlwind. They sow the wind and reap the whirlwind. The stalk has no bud, it shall never produce meal. Their doctrine is not really good in any sense of the word. It doesn't satisfy spiritually, it doesn't satisfy the soul. The stalk has no bud, it shall never produce meal. If it should produce, aliens would swallow it up. So even if they produce something, and this can be seen in two different ways. Even if they produce, as Christians and many others actually are seeking just riches and success in this world for material gain, even if they produce that, there will be strangers around them who will be the ones consuming those riches. In another sense, even if they produce for the spiritual, even if they learn, since they are guided by false doctrines of demons, fallen angels, etc., then what they produce is swallowed up by enemies or aliens, in the sense of false Elohim, those who are not the real mighty one, Yahweh the Most High, but aliens or strange Elohim, as they are called also in scriptures. So, if it should produce, aliens would swallow it up. Israel is swallowed up. Now they are among the Gentiles. Look how the chapter started talking about how the enemy will come like an eagle. Then it says how Israel is swallowed up for following a calf, becoming like Shomrom, following the golden calf. And well, it's not exactly the golden calf, not the one from Egypt, but it's the same spirit, and that's what I mean. So then it says Israel is swallowed up. Now they are among the Gentiles. Like nowadays, the true Israel is among the nations, not knowing that they are Israel, thinking they are the nations. And like I was saying, the enemy will come like an eagle. Now he's saying that Israel is being eaten, just like the eagle will eat them, according to Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 17. Israel is swallowed up. Now they are among the Gentiles, like a vessel in which is no pleasure. Like a vessel in which is no pleasure. Yahweh gets no pleasure from the false doctrine, and that's what they don't get when we try to help in any way in their spiritual life, for them to be able to know the Father as He wants them to know Him, as He has allowed us to know him, and even obviously more the more we walk in his ways. So, like a vessel in which is no pleasure, like somebody who doesn't want to drink from it because it just tastes bad. So Yahweh doesn't want to take from them what they are sending upwards. So an alien Elohim is taking that worship, and that's what they don't get, because since somebody's taking the worship, since they are apparently receiving certain things according to their eyes, then they think that they are in the right path. So, like a vessel in which is no pleasure, for they have gone up to Ashur, Ashur, which represents the power of the government, the world leader, the beast. For they have gone up to Ashur, like a wild donkey, alone by itself, like a wild donkey, like Ishmael, who was like a wild donkey. And we see in the New Covenant how Paul explains that Israel of the flesh was represented by Ishmael in the whole story. So Yahweh here in the prophets, in Hosea, is even confirming that. For they have gone up to Ashur like a wild donkey alone by itself. Ephraim has hired lovers, just like the great whore of Babylon. So if Ephraim has hired lovers, those lovers would be harlots, making the connection of how the people of Ephraim accepted the false doctrine of the great harlot of Babylon. Ephraim has hired lovers. And remember that in the spirit, fornication is idolatry. Adultery is idolatry when you already know that that is wrong and you still do it. Or when you have accepted the covenant with the Most High, yet you go against what he said regarding not worshiping images, not bowing down to them, not honoring in any way any image. So here we see that it says Ephraim has hired lovers, meaning they went for idolatry. Yes, though they have hired among the nations, now I will gather them, and they shall sorrow a little. This is key, because as we read a couple chapters back in Hosea 5:7, the many will have to die in a matter of 30 days. When they don't go up to the mountains, when they don't flee, as in the second Exodus, they will be captured for not taking the mark of the beast, and they will be killed in 30 days. Time the many. Each person obviously will be quick. That's why it says here, and they shall sorrow a little. Just for, like, on one side, Yahweh promises a few to save them, because they were not put in this world for wrath. But there are some, even many, who for rejecting the true Messiah who offered them salvation, instead they only went for justification, and therefore they will have to sorrow a little. Then it says, because of the burden of the king of princes. Because of the burden of the king of princes. It is also oracle or proclamation of the king of princes. Let me see in Hebrew for a moment. Melech Sarim, the king of princes. Obviously, in the positive sense, that will be the Almighty who sends the order, and that has to happen, and he does it through the last, who comes as the prince of princes and becomes the king of kings, as we see in Revelation 19. And they shall sorrow a little because of the burden of the king of princes, which is interesting, because the burden could be seen as the fact that he has to testify and then be killed. So because of the fact that they killed the witness like Moshe, they have to sorrow a little because of the burden that they made the last carry, which is to rectify the sin of the apostasy for worshiping the calf. The fact that they also translated as oracle or proclamation would be the prophecy of the last, who is the prophet like Moshe, who becomes the king of kings, being first king of princes, being the princes, the 144,000. Obviously, in the negative sense, would be the world leader who will order their death for rejecting the mark of the beast, for rejecting to be part of his new world order. Verse 11. Because Ephraim has made many altars for sin, they have become for him altars for sinning. Because Ephraim has made many altars for sin, like many churches, many doctrines, many religions. They have become for him altars for sinning. Those churches, those religions have become for the people who claim to believe actually something through which they sin. I have written for him the great things of my law. I have written for him the great things of my law. So Yahweh says, I even wrote everything down. I sent you an instruction manual. I have written for him the great things of my law, but they were considered a strange thing. So look at that. But they were considered a strange thing. That is amazing also, because when we tell them what Yahweh has revealed to us in scriptures, which is found in scriptures in an obvious way many times, confirmed and everything, to them is strange. Either they never thought they would find whatever we told them in scriptures, they didn't know because they didn't read scriptures, or they would read scriptures and understand completely something different. I have written for him the great things of my law, scriptures, but they were considered a strange thing. So they read it and it's strange to them what it says. And the stranger scriptures may be to the reader is because of how far the reader is from the Almighty, from the Spirit. The closer the person gets to the Spirit and the Almighty, the more he's able to understand and see how the scriptures are so perfect and not strange at all. So, since they have sinned going towards the idols, their eyes have dimmed and their ears have been shut, and therefore they're not able to hear the Spirit nor understand what they read in scripture, so they are strange to them. For the sacrifices, verse 13, for the sacrifices of my offerings, they sacrifice flesh and eat it. For the sacrifices of my offerings, they sacrifice flesh and eat it. But Yahweh does not accept them. Look how it says, for the sacrifices of my offerings, they sacrifice flesh and eat it. So they claim that it's for him, but they are the ones enjoying it. Obviously, when it comes also with even the sacrifices in the temple, even when they were doing it according to the law, the Kohanim were the ones eating, because obviously Yahweh won't eat from it. Yahweh doesn't need to eat, so it was for the priests. But the fact here with the rest of the context showing how they actually worship the Almighty not for who he is and how he deserves the honor, but because they actually want to get something. They want to get a house, a car, a partner for life, money, and a bunch of other things. So, for the sacrifices of my offerings, they sacrifice flesh and eat it. But Yahweh does not accept them. Their sacrifices, when they brought those sacrifices of animals to Yahweh, Yahweh was not accepting them. And he still doesn't. Even the type of sacrifices that they do nowadays. whatever they may call sacrifice. And we can read it also in Hebrews 13:15, where Yahweh says that we must offer sacrifice of praise, which is the fruit of our lips that confess his name. So to confess his name with our lips is the true sacrifice that he expects from us, and obviously fulfilling his will after acknowledging who he really is. But they sacrifice to other entities when they worship other names, other titles, other doctrines that are not that of the Father which is in scriptures. So they were considered a strange thing. For the sacrifices of my offerings they sacrifice flesh and eat it, but Yahweh does not accept them. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. So he has been given them time for them to repent, but instead of repenting, they get worse because they keep on walking towards falsehood, so they get farther from the truth. So now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. They shall return to Egypt, because they won't be able to enter the promised land, which is salvation, entering the kingdom without having to die. Instead, they will have to turn around and go to slavery, in which they will die. And Egypt represents the false religion, just like Ashur or Assyria represents the government of this world, the system. Egypt represents the religious system. 14. For Israel has forgotten his maker. For Israel has forgotten his maker. Something which is interesting is that Yahushua is the word of Yahweh, and everything that Yahweh made, he made it through the word. Therefore, the fact that it says maker is Elohim, both Yahweh and Mashiach, Yahushua, the word. For Israel has forgotten his maker and has built temples. Yehudah also has multiplied fortified cities. In this case, Israel as the many who are in Christianity, following false doctrines, whatever those may be, and Yehudah as the ones who call themselves Jewish and do not accept Yahushua as Messiah, for instance. Yehudah also has multiplied fortified cities, but I will send fire upon his cities, like in the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, because also Yahushua said that the time of the coming of the Son of Man would be like the days of Lot and like the days of Noah. Yehudah also has multiplied fortified cities, but I will send fire upon his cities, and it shall devour his palaces. And it shall devour his palaces. Yehudah, those who reject Messiah and call themselves Jewish, tend to have a lot of power nowadays in this world. And it's interesting how when it mentions Yehudah, it mentions cities and palaces.